You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver media podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community and forum, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from fresh farm ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Well, good morning and hello, kids. Welcome to Season 3 and episode number 43 of the Not Quite Daily Beaver Morning Show, our much less scripted version of our regular podcast, still the same incisive commentary on Canadian politics and general culture, but much less scripted for when you want to get your day started off with a nice warm bowl of Beaver Grizzly goodness. Yum, yum, yum. Today, recording day is Monday, January 23rd, 2023. And it looks like it will be another yet unseasonably warm day here at the Ottawa Beaver Lodge, with temperatures again hitting 0 at the end of January. I know it feels good for us, but it's not a good sign. It's not a good sign.
Not.
It feels good now, but 15 years from now, we might be so happy. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, and I am dancing a jig because you, dearest kits, have joined us this morning. Yes, if you might notice, I do seem particularly chipper because I have had a fantastic weekend. Because it was PubCast weekend. And PubCast weekends are always very, very, very good weekends for me. Because I get to see you.
And you got to reunite with our dear friend Catherine.
Yes. I've been smiling ever since.
Nice.
Yeah.
I actually I woke up this morning feeling refreshed for the first time in I don't know how long. Now,
nice.
I didn't sleep right through the night, of course. I woke
Yes.
up multiple times because, that's how the body works when you're on Zoloft. But I actually feel refreshed this morning. Yesterday was a very relaxing day. I had, I woke up at 2:30 in the morning, so I didn't have much energy during the day, so I stayed home. I didn't go out. I wanted to go to my parents for dinner, but I had a work project that I'm still struggling with. Some video editing, and it's the audio that's the issue. And anyway, it stressed me out for a little bit, but I didn't get stressed yesterday. I just worked on it, realized, okay, I might have to go to some different footage to make this happen, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Took a deep breath, did some meditation. Relaxed, listened to some music, did a jazz show, which helped. That always calms me down.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a mellow day yesterday, but it was good. It was good. And what about you? What'd you get up to yesterday? Because I know what you did Saturday.
Yeah, that was fun. You know what? Yesterday was just a real lazy catch-up day.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing for me.
Well, I mean, it's every now and then in people's lives, they're like times where there's a lot of stuff that's due at once, or a lot of things together that takes you out of your regular routine, and then you need to get back to it. So, for me, for example, there's been a particular amount of travel, right? With going to see family for the holidays, and then going to see friends, having the opportunity to see friends in Quebec City last weekend, and then coming this weekend. And, like I said, I was trying to get, where I volunteer, there was a play coming out, opening this week. So, I do their program for them. So, I had to get all that information. So there's a couple of days last week, couple of evenings where I was doing that rather than researching, and stuff. So yeah, yesterday was just, pajamas, go out only for like the only thing I absolutely needed, and stay at home and listen to a few podcasts, just, take some time to talk
Yeah.
to the sweetie because, have a nice long conversation by phone because, I haven't got to see him. And and I didn't get to see him a couple of days last week and a couple of days this week, so kind of lonely for each other. you
Yeah,
know,
I understand.
so
Yeah.
so it's just little things like that. So yeah, it was a nice easy day. But once again, the magic couch. Every single
Yeah.
night I've been here so far, I have fallen asleep and woken up on the couch, and I've woken up exactly at 6 o'clock in the morning on my own, no alarms, no nothing.
Wow, that's kind of trippy.
I cannot seem for I don't know what it is. When I stretch out on this thing, I never actually make it to the bed.
You know what though? If you get a good night's sleep, that's all that matters, right? It's like, yeah, I know. Hey, I've crashed on my couch on more times than I care to mention. Wake up and feel great. So it's like I'm not going to argue with it. It worked.
Nope.
That's all
Yeah.
that matters. You know.
Yeah. 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 But yeah, this thing is magic. I don't know what it is, man. It's just it's like if I was a nightmare on Elm Street, this would be the worst piece of furniture to have in the scene.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
Oh man. Good morning, Kit Pete. Hello, mate. How are you? Good morning, Kit Saucy. Good morning, Kit Jillian. Good morning, South Stands TFC. I should say Kit South Stands TFC. That one doesn't really roll off the tongue as
You got to work on that.
easily for me. I gotta work on that one. Good morning, Lazy Says with Wade and Doe. Good morning, Kit Elaine. If I missed anybody so far, I am sorry. I will hopefully get to you during the rest of the show. Good morning, Kit Linda. Good morning, Nona. Lovely to see you. Good morning, Kit Dharma Karma. Good morning, Kit Kath needs a Snickers. Wow, it's like the whole family this morning.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Jeez.
The whole damn family,
Lovely.
the whole family. Yeah, Pete, I
The
don't know
whole
what happened.
family.
I pulled up all the transparency you sent me. Each one of them identical. They come up with a white background, so I don't know what happened there, but weird. I loaded it up, and because the image I've got in our little graphic that says live, it should be just like there shouldn't be that white background for some reason.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
All right.
I'll leave it with you, Pete. You're the man. You can figure it out. I don't know what the hell will happen, but they all showed up like that. So
But yes,
I
but
fix. I like that.
yes, but if you are watching, on the top right hand corner, that the new little I don't know, is that a logo? I guess you would
Yeah,
say.
live logo.
Yeah,
Yeah, live
a
logo.
little live logo. Yeah, with the little button there that says live. I like that.
Yeah.
That's cute. I love it. I love
There's a
this
few.
guy.
He sent me a few different ones, and of course I've got this background, but I think it's so I created this background very quickly yesterday. It's just the two
Yeah.
lives in the bottom, and I've got a standard, and then the pride one, and then the middle of the snow, like stars or snow, I guess. But I think sometimes a moving image creates a little bit of audio issues, so
Yes.
that might be. But it seems to be fine now, so we'll leave it up. If it creates an issue, I'll just switch it back to the Crier wallpaper, because
I
we are
love that.
members of the Crier network, right? The Crier Media
are.
Network. That's us.
We
Gotta
are.
promote. Gotta promote.
Yes. I'm so happy about this. We should probably try to have Dean on at some point so he can talk to the
Oh,
kids
yeah.
about what this whole thing
Well,
was and how it came about.
Maybe we can arrange to have him come in Friday morning, because it's 7 a.m. is a little early for him. But
Yeah.
Fridays we can go for a while, right? So maybe we can get him come on a little bit later on Friday morning.
Yeah, that might be a good idea. We'll ask him. So yeah, thanks, Pete. We love it. Makes us look a little more professional. I like it. That
Well,
little live thing.
I added a little change to our bumper and bumper. You'll see at the end of the show
Okay.
today. You'll see.
I like the change
Just
you
a
made
subtle
to
change.
yes, I like the change to the beginning bumper with the countdown. Because
like
whenever we
that,
play our theme music, the dun, 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 that makes me happy. But when that thing is counting down, it's like before we start, I'm like here, like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, that's
It's
the
like,
idea, to get the energy up, right?
yeah, I've all pops like this. But the only thing is like because at about 4 seconds we get the drop, then it comes.
Yeah.
I want to hear what the rest of that song sounds like.
Well, it's
I
the
want to know
teaser,
what
man.
comes
It's
next.
the teaser. It's the teaser.
I'm dancing in my
So
living room, but I
what I
want to know
did was
what comes next.
we had the older countdown, which was the 30-second one with the rainbow colors, and that it was nice, and I liked it, but I couldn't splice it together with our stuff, so I had to launch it and then launch ours, and sometimes there would be a gap and a bit of a hiccup between the two. So
Yeah.
I just said to heck with it. I went into the program I used, created my own, and put that together, so it's all one big clip now. So I just press play and it runs, so there's no hiccups anymore. That's so. But I'll get the song in somewhere in the full length, but I think it's about 3.5-4 minutes, and it's
Okay,
it's not licensed. It's unlicensed, so I can play the whole thing.
There is a 3-minute version?
Oh, it's like a 5-minute version, I think. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
But I got to find a way to put it in and incorporate it into the show, right? So that it makes sense, not just at the start,
Okay,
And
but
I'll
I
figure
mean,
that
yeah,
out
but you
later.
can still send that to me so I can dance around in the bathroom to it, right?
Not sure if I can do that because it's part and parcel to the software I use to create the imagery.
Oh,
It's licensed for us to use. It's not unlicensed. It's licensed for us to use for that purpose because I pay for it. It's like $17 a month. I got to pay for that software. So,
okay.
and which reminds me, I'm behind. I didn't pay them. You just sent me a thing said, "Pay me some money." Oh, and I realized what happened on Saturday when I went to pay my bill. My Amazon Prime payment, along with another payment that I had completely forgotten about, came out of that account. So I had budgeted for Saturday. Saturday, and then completely, it's the once a year payment. But
that's what we assumed, right?
Yeah, and that's what it was. So it was like, oh.
Yeah.
And of course, it happens to it has to happen in a January when money's a little bit tighter in January because Christmas and whether you're spending money on gifts, there's some sort of travel. There's always something involved with spending extra money at that time of the year, whether you celebrate Christmas or not, right? There's some sort of corporate event or whatever the case may be, maybe a traveling thing, something, and then of course it has to happen while we're doing a live broadcast.
Of course. Right?
Send money.
Because
broke.
Because it's 2023. It's like, okay, this is the portion of the pub chat where we dance. Woo!
Yes. Yes. Paul has no shame because, I have no shame.
All of a sudden, the podcast has become a telethon. Let's raise money for Paul.
I don't feel good about asking people to send me money to help pay my bar tab, though. That's pretty, that's pretty lame, if you ask me.
It's like, do you really want those hands washing dishes? Send money.
I know where these have been.
Oh, I was not going there at all. That's a whole other direction.
I worked construction, remember? So I know where they've been.
Yes,
You went into the gutter. I was thinking about construction hands.
Sure you were. With that tone.
I've had to work in buildings that, I'm not kidding, I have video of a building where there was so many holes in the roof when they were working on it, they didn't seal the roof in time, so it was raining in the building. Like several centimeters of water in the building that I'm working on. All of our equipment is soaked. It's covered in mud and probably some other brown substances. So I know where these hands have been.
Like that kid Jen goes, "Oh, hello, Tummy." Is this OnlyFans? No, I figured get the sex bots before they get you.
That's probably a good idea.
I'm bringing sexy back.
Well, somebody's got to bring it back because sexy front, sexy back.
Would we bring sexy back?
Yes.
That's
what it would be.
Bringing sexy back bacon is what I'm bringing.
Bacon. I would like some
bacon. So we didn't thank our sponsors yet. The Pepper Master, Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. That's okay. And Mr. Grizzly, I guess your mental health's doing pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Today, I'm good. I'm going to stick with it, and I'm for the most part, I'm kind of sticking with my no media, no social media for the most part. I glanced through some headlines this morning to glean some stuff for the show, but for the most part, I'm sticking into a keep the head down for a couple more days until I know I'm in a really good space. But I did find this last night, and it was like,
Please do.
this is this man. This just speaks for itself. Yeah, that was
what exactly
70s,
am I looking at here?
It was a clothing store in Detroit in the 70s, Eleganza. You remember the TV series Space 1999? The guy in the right-hand corner looks like he's wearing the Space 1999 uniform. The guy in the bottom left-hand corner has a boomerang around his neck for some bloody reason. and those shoes are hideous. Hideous. Like, who would wear those? I remember people wearing them in the 70s, actually. They were really uncomfortable, and they were all plastic. So, yeah, that's disturbing. The 70s were a weird time. I think everybody was on cocaine.
Kit Sussy's good. Okay, what's happening here? And I'm right with you, sister. That was a fashion faux pas.
And this is the other thing. This is the other thing I pulled off the internet last night, just when I was preparing this. I thought I'd pull this one up. So, speaks for itself, I think. Play nice, and one day they'll be walking behind us carrying our poop in a bag. 2 wolves staring at a bunch of cavemen. So, yeah, I've kind of kept my head down when it comes to news media. I did watch some football on the weekend, though, and the Buffalo Bills did not play well enough to win. They lost. They got their butts handed to them, which is what I expected in that game. I was hoping for them to win, only because of Damar Hamlin, right? And
right.
I thought it would have been nice for him. He was at the game. He marched out. I thought it would have been nice to win it, but I didn't think they had the capabilities, and they didn't. And it was odd because they were playing at home in the snow. So I thought, oh, yeah, they got to pull this off. No, they didn't. They didn't pull it off. And then Dallas got their butts kicked, which I expected because San Francisco's a much better team. KC, Patrick Mahomes, is the greatest quarterback in football today. If his career can last as long as Tom Brady's, he'll be a Hall of Fame. Well, he'll be a Hall of Famer either way. But if his career can last as long as Tom Brady's, he may usurp Brady from some of the records that he has. But, well, time will tell. Time will tell. Anyway, enough about football because we are not a sports show, but I did want to address that because it's important to a lot of people, and I did manage to check out 2 games yesterday. Of course, Saturday we were at the pub having the chat, so there was none of that. No football on Saturday. We missed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed we did. All right. So you have no news knowledge whatsoever?
I do have 2 snippets I pulled this morning. 2 quick ones.
Okay.
So this was posted by Skippy yesterday. Filipino values are conservative values, hard work, family, and country. Let's remove gatekeepers here so more foreign-trained nurses, doctors, and skilled workers can do the jobs they're qualified for here in Canada. Yet, he also said this, Immigration Canada, Justin Trudeau is spending millions on empty hotel rooms. You use xenophobic rhetoric arguing that foreign migrant workers were taking Canadian workers' jobs and driving down wages. So which is it, Skippy? Which is it? Please? I mean, my God, man. The guy flip-flops so much that Havaianas should hire him. You know who Havaianas is? They make flip-flops. Yeah.
No, I didn't know that one.
Yeah, Havaianas. They're a brand of flip-flops out of Brazil. They're brilliant. I love them. I have a couple of pairs of them. They're wonderful, comfortable flip-flops for the summertime. But the man flip-flops so much, and the whole gatekeeper thing. He went on yesterday, showed a picture of an empty pharmacy shelves in a Loblaw superstore. And when I go, Justin Trudeau, and I'm like, Justin Trudeau doesn't own Loblaws. Justin Trudeau does not work in private sector industry. It's funny how you want a gatekeeper when you need somebody to blame who has nothing to do with supply chains. But you want to remove gatekeepers over here but install more here. Do you want to nationalize the grocery stores and the pharmacies? Is that it? Like this guy, he just says whatever is convenient for him in that exact second. Not even the moment, that exact second. Whatever he finds convenient to rage farm. The guy's an idiot. He's a gaslighting asshole.
Yep.
I mean, period.
Yep.
And that's all I know about the news. That's it. I've kept my head down. So please inform me, good sir.
Well, on that point, however, you're hitting it on the head. I mean, I've said it often on the show, right? Whatever gets you through the current nanosecond.
Exactly.
Right. And when we had our interview with journalist Robert Lee, we were talking about his ability in particular over time to connect dots, right? And not just breathlessly deal with what's happening in this moment, right? We're always looking at the bark and never actually looking at the full tree or even the forest, taking a step back, and looking over a couple of weeks and putting, connecting some dots together, then looking a little back in history and, why are we so focused on this or why are we so focused on that? Why is this coming up now? What's this person's connection to this thing? What happened when the shoe was on the other foot?
Shoes on the other foot.
Well played, sir.
Thank you, sir. That's the shoe he'd be wearing.
Yeah. So on the flip-flopping thing, you're right. I mean, it's an issue. It's he was all for the convoy specifically until there started to come some heat, and then he was for the certain people in the convoy, but not other people in the convoy. He did the reach out to the MGTOW until they joked, air quotes, about, well, raping his wife. All intents and purposes.
And then he got all bent out of shape, right?
Yeah. Then he got all bent out of shape, but yet after all of that, right, just a few weeks ago, or last week it was, he comes and gives a reach around to that crowd by doing his Jordan Peterson thing. Right? I don't agree with everything Jordan Peterson's ever said, but and then going into quoting Voltaire and, and whatever.
Which I thought was hilarious. Voltaire is about as lead as it gets, right?
Right. But it's like he does to Voltaire what Americans do to Martin Luther King. The color of, not the color of their skin, but the content of
their character. Yeah.
Right. They just disassociate it from everything, the context, whatever he said next in the speech. Right. And then they just apply it. Right. So, I mean, this is the same type of thing going on here. With that line.
This is Pierre. He's beyond flops.
New Pulver flip-flops. We have them in sizes from extra small to extra petty. With a whole range of all the tiny. Anyway. Doing all of that. And then you have all your other flip-flops from him. That I had listed in my head ready to go, and you threw me with that one.
I'm sorry.
So, no, that's all right. That's all right. He is flip-flopping all over the place. And, the other reach around he gave was when he went to the Frontier group in Manitoba to deliver that speech, Frontier Center. Often publish, climate skepticism type stuff and pro-convoy stuff and, vaccine skeptic or anti-vaccine type stuff. But it is, apparently my internet is fritzy.
Yeah, you're a little jittery. Yeah.
Oh.
You're a little jittery.
Oh, I am
There's
sorry.
There's nothing I can do about it.
That.
It's just your connection. Yeah, nothing I can do about it. I just changed the background because that may interfere a little bit.
Okay. So anyway, he goes and gives a speech to them, and there again says, right, I don't agree with everything they've ever said, right? But where it is, with all those three things, the denialism of all that kind of stuff being one thing, it's really their content about indigenous peoples and the residential school system. And I mean, we shouldn't even call them residential schools, they're residential institutions, really. I mean,
Kiddie prisons.
yeah. But for lack of a better word, residential schools, and saying that it was a myth and that all of this was overblown, and there's no way that people could be suffering the effects still today, and all that kind of stuff. That's where and the thing is that when we talked about him stealing thunder on the day of the two apologies, right, the day of the apology to the First Nations from the federal government for residential schools, which, as we mentioned before, the government failed to say, they said they were sorry, but then they didn't show they were sorry in any way by changing behavior or trying to atone. But there was that, and then he went to CFRA and did the counter programming about Indigenous people needing a better work ethic, and complaining that he's not getting value for money we're spending on a legal tort settlement. Why would you get value for money for paying for damages caused? Right? So, but that's what he went out to say, right? He went out to basically soften, give the red meats to the base on the day that apology was being given. And then when the papal apology came, that's the day that he and Harper basically conspired to have Harper endorse him for leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. So again, he had some counter-programming. The day he went to the Hunt Frontier Centre, now, clearly, the arrangement was made before this happened, but happened to be the day after on the Blanket Cree Nation, the Star Blanket Cree Nation, I believe, where a fragment of jog bone of a child 4 to 6 years old, that's about 125 years old, that they've been able to date, was found near an area where there was a residential school at the time. So the day after. Again, in your communications team, you have some people that say that maybe you would want to change that date at that time, or but he went ahead and so, and as he's saying that, there's another incident that comes out where he puts out a press release and he says, like this, I've always stood against discrimination of any kind.
That's not true.
The MGTOW outreach on your YouTube. Anti-women discrimination. The 2 times you went out to steal thunder from the Indigenous community, and now going to the Frontier Center and saying that, well, I don't agree with everything they said, but I need to talk to them anyway.
Speaking in plain Anglo-Saxon terms, like that's a dog whistle.
Yes, giving the reach around to Jordan Peterson. Again, I'm sure the women felt great about that. I'm sure the gays felt great about that. I'm sure transsexuals felt great about that. And then he has another video again where he's talking about Justin Trudeau having dressed up in costume, once again bringing up the blackface thing. Once again trying to give CPR mouth to mouth to a corpse that's rotting.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we're not even talking a dead horse, right? It's like this, but it's like, again, it's like if you keep on, it's like, and I'm sitting there and it's like, I'm not sure every black person, because a significant number of black people, every time they see that, it's like dude is just reopening up the wound. If you show pictures of that blackface or mention the blackface more times than the person has done blackface, don't come and tell me you care about black people. You care about black people insofar they are a cudgel, an inanimate object with which to beat someone over the head.
There you go.
The Indigenous people, Jody Wilson-Raybould, the only time they cared about an Indigenous person, so far that I can tell in my last 40 years, is as her. And they use her to beat him over the head. The not a real feminist thing.
That's it.
All those little movements, right? Those little things that they try to put up. The Trudeau, the Groper, it's just...
It's all calculated.
It's all calculated. But it's like, do not tell me that you care about black people. When you do not miss any opportunity to take those blackface images, that most of the black community has basically said, yeah, okay, we understand you've done that, but as Miss Janet Jackson said, what have you done for me lately? Clearly you've learned, right? And
Yeah.
then they were saying, like this, we don't really somebody with a questionable moral past. Okay, again, we're comparing alternatives to each other, not the Almighty.
Hmm.
So in the battle of Trudeau versus Pierre Poilievre, someone with a questionable moral past who may have learned from it and appears that he has, or someone with a questionable moral
Hmm.
present who keeps doubling down on it.
Well,
Always
that's the
better the
big
person
problem,
with a
right?
questionable moral past in this case,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
No,
mean,
exactly. Well, it was the thing. Was it True North went on yesterday or the day before? I can't remember when it was, and they did the thing. I watched the clip from it was. They said Trudeau goes on a 5-minute tirade against. I'm like, no, he didn't. He talked about. You've got one guy over here who supported the convoy, who supported hateful rhetoric, Skippy, bringing them coffee and donuts, supporting the things that separate and divide Canadians, when he's over here trying to keep Canadians safe. It was a 5-minute discussion, not a tirade. He talked about how there is a small fringe group of Canadians who are just filled with hate, period. And those Canadians are selfish a-holes who don't give a shit about anybody but themselves because they refuse to live within the confines of society. They refuse to do the bare minimum, get a vaccine, wear a mask. Bare minimum. They refuse to do that because for the very first time in their ever so fragile white lives, they were inconvenienced. They didn't like the fact that they were finally granted the same equality as other members of society have always had to live within. An inconvenience for the first time in their lives, and they couldn't handle it for a split second. So what did they do? They encamped in my city, on my streets, hassled my local friends and neighbors, tortured us for days on end because they couldn't get their way, which, by the way, all the mandates they wanted to end are, what were they? What's that magic word? Provincial. Let's go to Canada's capital to protest provincial mandates.
right. And
They need to aim their hatred at somebody, so they aim it at the Prime Minister when all of this was provincial. Okay, sure, couldn't get on a train or a plane because that was federal,
yeah.
but you drove across the country. You still had freedom of movement. You just didn't have the freedom of movement on the method that you wanted to use because you refused to obey the rules. And the rules were simple. You want to get on a plane or a train, you have to have a vaccine and a mask. Those are the rules because we're in the middle of a worldwide deadly pandemic. You
Right.
can't follow the
And-
rules, you don't get to play.
Right. And if Trudeau had removed the mandate for crossing the border, all that would have done was allowed American truckers to come into Canada. That would not have helped
That's it.
anybody here.
Yeah, because you couldn't cross into the U.S. without a vaccine, period. You couldn't. And I believe, is it still the case right now in the U.S.? I'm not sure.
You still need
Because I know Canada, you can come into Canada without it, but I think you still need it to go to the U.S.
you still
could be
need it to
wrong,
go to
but-
the U.S. that I can tell. Yes, I haven't heard anything that's come off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So what are you going to do?
So they still wouldn't be
You
able to go now.
complain- No, you're complaining to the Prime Minister about a rule that was in place by the President of the United States of America, the most powerful country on earth. And he's not the leader of the free world, and I hate it when they say that. Oh, that drives me out of my mind. I
Yes,
didn't
yeah.
elect the guy. I have my own leader. Thank you very much.
Yep.
And we're freer than you are. So
Yep.
shut your pie hole.
Yep.
Shut your pie hole. And yeah, Pete, you're right. Mandatory voting that you have in Australia.
Ugh.
And we need to get that here.
Gee, I'd love
We
that.
need to get it here. It would make... Hey, look, we wouldn't be in the problems we're in the province of Ontario right now, I don't think. What was the turnout? 43% for the last provincial
Yep,
election?
43.
Giving Doug Ford a majority conservative vote with 17%.
I think it's 18 or something, but yeah, something low. It's
like-
below 20.
How is that a majority? And yet, here we are. When people don't come out to vote, if he gets the larger share of the 43%, and he did, look at where we are. Mandatory voting.
Yep.
Yeah, and I like that idea too, Linda. Mandatory holiday on mandatory voting day.
Absolutely.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah. I'm down for that. I second that motion. Absolutely.
And Australia's had that since what, the 1920s, I believe? It's been around for a very long time because they had an election. They used to have really high turnouts, and then they had 1 year where it was a low turnout. So they said, that's it, boom, mandatory voting from here on out. And people have adopted it as their civic duty because that's what it is. It's your civic duty.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, I don't feel like voting. Well, dude, it's 5 minutes out of your life.
Responding to the census.
This is Canada. It's not.
Yeah.
I mean, we broke the web because we responded to the census in so many numbers.
Right. Responding to the census, jury duty, and voting are 3 civic duties like this, and one of them, voting, has no penalty if you don't do it. It's like, come on, man. Really? To live in Canada?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like literally bare minimum.
Bare minimum.
Pete put up this little barren minimum earlier on. It was so cute.
I think
we should have T-shirts like that. It's the Grizzly minimum.
The Grizzly minimum. There we go. Pete, get to work. 1918. So 1918 is when they started it. So I think the longest it ever took me to vote in my life was 30 minutes because I had to drive to the poll because I was working in another part of town. So I had to drive to the poll, park my car, walk in. Here's me. Here, whose I am. I did the vote. I left. So it was literally the drive there took me longer than anything else, but it was only because I was working in another part of town. Now, for provincial votes, it's in the lobby of my building. So I can go down in my underwear if I want for provincial. And federal elections is in the gym where I work out across the street, 120 meters from here. Now, in the last provincial election, Dougie did close a lot of polls. He closed a number of polls, remember? And he reduced the number of poll workers, and that was all to try and skew the vote, which he did. And I have a problem with that. Voting is our right in Canada. It is not a privilege. It is our right in Canada. And I believe it should be mandatory, but you should not be limiting polling stations. People need to, some people have a difficult time, which is why, and it's the thing we've discussed in the past, where maybe we should consider online voting for individuals who, maybe have a mobility issue or a transport issue getting to a polling station. Even when it's closed, it's not always available to everybody. So there is a small percentage of the population that I think could really use an online voting system. How do we determine that? How do we work that out? I don't know. I don't have the answer. I'm just a dumb old white guy. I don't have any answers. I just have a lot of questions and maybe a few suggestions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, it's a weird time, right? Because it's on one hand, so many things that are getting better, and on the other hand, there are so many things that just seem like one or two just lever clicks or button pushes from going straight to hell. It's one of those may you live in interesting times being a curse type thing. It's
true.
Yeah. And bringing us back to where we were talking with Pierre, we have this guy who's trying to make us believe, trying to make some people on the conservative side believe that he's not as extreme as he is. Right? I mean, that's the whole. Yeah, but that's the whole. I don't agree with everything you've ever said. And the reason this thing, why I'm bringing it up, it's stuck in my head the more I was listening to him say it, that it's a shield behind which you hide to then say awful things or give your approval to, awful people, or sucky humans, I like to say, or sucky things that maybe not sucky humans, but being sucky human in the moment. Let's say they're not generally sucky humans; they're just having a sucky human moment. But the thing is that when you make a statement like that, and the reason why it's so clever media-wise is that it allows the listener to project whatever they want onto that, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the things with which you also agree with that he is supporting by not supporting everything someone said are things deemed that he is supporting because you like the guy,
Yeah, it's
right? And
it's
if there are,
complex and weird.
I know, but it becomes this canvas where the person that's listening,
Mm-hmm.
and the person on the other side, conversely, the person that doesn't like them says, well, yeah, well, you're saying that because you want, you don't want to, say out loud that you agree that, women should be barefoot in the kitchen and blah, 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 and give their man sex whenever they want and blah, 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 and all that alphas, I've got a white stance stuff, right? But you do want to say that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You hear them, if you're a Pierre, you hear them saying, well, yeah, the only reason you're saying that is because you want to say that and you can't. So this is how you're saying it. So it's this blank canvas, whether you come at him from the love him or hate him side, that you can project whatever you want. And I think it would be really, really nice, again, if media would dare to commit to journalism and basically ask what it is specifically that these people have said that he does not agree. Because just simply
Well,
saying I don't agree with everything Genghis Khan ever said. I don't agree with everything Margaret Thatcher ever said. I don't agree with everything Big Bird ever said. It's like none of us agree with what anybody has ever said. So it's like, okay, well that's very nice. Okay, now after you've given that platitude that basically means nothing, it's like, tell us what are the things that you are worried that we would think that you agree with, and tell us that you don't agree with them. I mean, that's the traditional, that's the obvious follow-up question. It would be if someone asked it. There's this other thing that I noticed that he's been doing. Apparently, he went out when he was out in Winnipeg to give that announcement. There was a journalist from the Winnipeg Free Press, I believe his name is Tyler Shaw, who had published an article stating that they had tried to get some comment from him, but he was not going to give any interviews at all
mm-hmm.
that day. And then apparently between the time that happened and everything else that day, he had scheduled 4 interviews with some of the media, including one with CTV in Winnipeg, which is the one, if you're on the web, you might be seeing some clips where he's sitting in a chair with a lady, I believe, wearing a brown blouse or something in Winnipeg and doing an interview in CTV studios. So he's scheduled all of those afterwards, and then had his team go online to call that journalist a liar.
Yeah, that was curious timing on his part, right?
Right. So they basically set him up like this, or just decided, like, we'll show him.
Mm-hmm.
And because, he's positioned, you can
specious.
call any media outlet and get a media interview in like 30 minutes or an hour, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's available.
Yeah.
Do you want to interview him? Like people are going to jump on that. So, so this type of thing went on behind the scenes. And then, of course, the journalists asking the questions ask him, whether or not, why it is that he's shying away from interviews with the parliamentary press, I guess. And he basically, he's sitting there like this, and he's got this thing where he's sitting with his arms like this, and looks like a little very, very casual.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very casual pose. And he's sitting there, well, I'm here now.
Yeah.
The fact that I'm
pretty
here now
pathetic.
means that I'm here now with you in mainstream media, and still not parliamentary press gallery, right? It's the local Manitoba, in Wig CTV studio that he's in, right? And with a journalist who's probably not used to on a daily basis, interviewing a federal politician. This provincial, probably. I don't know. I've never seen this journalist before, so I don't know what her background is.
I have no idea.
So I can't judge her on that sense. But he's basically sitting there trying to sell to the people the fact that I've done this interview, which might be like the fourth one with the mainstream media, but still not the parliamentary press gallery, though, is proof that he does interviews regularly all the time and stands for scrums and all of that kind of stuff. So it's the utter shamelessness again, and the utter just coolness and casual. I don't know if casualness is a word, but it's just he's just like sitting there.
Yeah.
Right. When he's doing video walking through I'm not walking through where he's talking about the Justin Trudeau wearing, these outfits. He actually like laughing. Now, the intent of the laughing is like, can you believe this guy? But he's happy to be using this opportunity. He's gleefully referring to blackface. Gleefully. It's
because he takes joy in it.
The cruelty is the point.
Oh, yeah.
As was said about the Trump administration. This man, there's no line. There's no line.
No line he won't cross. No. He will, like I said, it's the nanosecond. He will say whatever is convenient for him to say in that exact moment to get him the clicks, the listens, the views, and rage farm. The man has no policy, no point, doesn't give a damn. And the whole thing when he came out to defend and give that big reach around to Jordan Peterson was complete and utter bullshit anyway. It's got nothing to do with the Prime Minister of Canada and everything to do with the governing licensing body for clinical psychologists. He violated their code of conduct. Guess what? Yeah. You've got to go before the board and face disciplinary action. It has nothing to do with the Prime Minister of Canada. Nobody is suspending Jordan Peterson's right to freedom of expression. And that's the other thing. They keep talking about freedom of speech. We don't have that in Canada. We have freedom of expression. As a member of Parliament, you should know this. So he's purposely using language to drum up and rage farm his base who believes we have a First Amendment and a Fifth Amendment. And the Fifth Amendment, by the way, a Second Amendment, was it the Second or Fifth? Fifth Amendment in Canada was the ability for Manitoba to join Confederation. So we have freedom of expression, not freedom of speech. He needs to know this, and he does. But he's purposely using language to drum up a certain a portion of the population, and then trying to enrage them by saying, you're going to lose your right to freedom of speech. Again, we don't have it because Justin Trudeau is taking it away. He won't let Jordan Peterson say what he wants. None of that is true. Not a word of that is true. Not a single word of that is true.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the Prime Minister of Canada, everything to do with the governing body and licensing body of clinical psychologists for the province of Ontario. He violated their code of conduct. He had to go before their board to be disciplined for it. That's it. He can say whatever he wants, but if you say something that runs afoul of the code of conduct of your licensing body, they will pull your license. They didn't say he couldn't say that. It's just if you say that, you're going to lose your license, period.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
That's how it works. I mean, and like we said, right, when we're talking about him, when he got his license, he signed a code that he would agree to certain rules and certain code of conduct
That's right.
and behaviors. And I said now he's being held to that. He's being held to account by a jury of his own peers.
Of his peers.
This is his other people that do the same kind of work that he does, that have the same kind of training he does, that have the same kind of licensing that he does, that have signed the same type of oaths and documents that he has, saying, dude, you got straight from the path. And it wasn't even sanctions that were being proposed at the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. It was come in and have a talk about your media, online media, and social
that's right.
media conduct like this. Yeah. So let's have a talk about this, and let's see if you need some type of retraining in social media as it pertains to clinical psychologists registered with our order. And then, now this will have to be at your cost.
Yeah.
But, and this is all goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This all goes away. Nobody needs to know about this. We're communicating with you one-on-one in private. Like this, just
And
come
then he
in,
went
let's
public
do
with
it.
it. And he
then
released stuff
he
that he
decided to
shouldn't
make
have
a big deal.
released either. Yeah.
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 Well,
Oh, and then he tried to sick his sycophants onto Rachel Gilmore because she just took what he tweeted, took screenshots of it, and reposted it and wrote a story about it. And then he tried to send all of his incel MGTOW followers after her for reporting on what he did when he did it.
Yeah. Well, on the board as well. On
Yeah,
the board as
he went
well,
after the board.
right?
Well,
Because all those
and
polling,
did you see that the
right?
board is
Like
now,
this,
all their meetings are virtual now. They will not have
Yeah.
in-person meetings anymore because they've been threatened by too many people.
Yeah, well, that was the whole thing, right? This whole thing with, if you, the people, decide that I have done something wrong, I will fall on my sword and go take the media training, which is like, it's not up to the people to decide whether or not, it's up to your peers to decide whether or not you screwed up. And which people would you recognize, right? If it's only your own people, well, then clearly you're never going to have to take the training or resign, right? So he gets to be judge, jury, and executioner in this one. And then if the board has made a mistake and sullied my name and blah, 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 well, then all of them must resign. And then he started putting polls, right? Who's doing wrong with this, and targeting all the direction towards the board. So, and this is like one of those things, like mob speak, I guess. When they're talking about Trump never actually tells you to do it, but because he never finishes a sentence really, right? And trails off and goes. But throughout the whole tone of the conversation and whatnot, you get that he's telling you to do something, right? When he's saying, do us a favor, though, it's not really do us a favor, though, it's do this or else. But he just says, do us a favor. So this is the same type of speak, where you're not actually saying what it is, but you're basically talking around it. So he's not actually telling his people, like, go out and harass the members of the board. But if Jordan Peterson decides he doesn't like somebody and that somebody should be sanctioned in some way for having done wrong to Jordan Peterson, and he focuses enough attention on it and mentions them frequently over a sustained period of time, what do you then says, well, I can't be responsible for what my followers do, knowing full well that you have followers who will do.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for joining us, Pete.
Yeah. Oh,
Appreciate
yes.
you, brother.
Yes. Bye, Pete. Thank you for joining us. We love you. So yeah, dot. You know what's coming next.
Oh, yeah.
You know what's coming next. He doesn't have to say it. He just has to suggest that he's not happy with a certain group, and then,
Yeah.
they'll take care of the rest.
Then the army gets released.
So I don't understand the Poliver move in terms of doing that video strategically, in terms of getting more reasonable-minded, actually conservative people to want to join his sort of PPC-ish reboot, PPC-CPC merger party.
I think that's going to happen because he's been seen with a lot of prominent members, delegates of the PPC lately, and their response is, he supports everything we do. I'm like, oh, Jesus, that's not good.
Center-ice conservatives, might be time to start your party.
No kidding.
Just saying.
Yeah.
If that
Yeah, we
split's
know
not
they're
going to
out
remain
there, too.
right, you guys better split on the center right, because he's taking you down.
He is.
He's gonna take you down.
He's going to torpedo the whole thing.
But the thing is that, like, in all normal circumstances, that's true one thing, right? A situation where the public is in a familiarity breeds contempt mode against the current government, and then the next government just wins by default. Because that's what happens often in Canada. Liberals win elections and then Conservatives win elections by default once people get tired of the Liberals. And then we do that for a while and we go, oh my God, why did we do that again? And then we elect Liberals for another 10 to 13 years. So he's working hard, and apparently as well, he was did a little tour of Quebec last week. He was in Montreal, Quebec City, and Trois-Rivières, because the Trois-Rivières region, apparently there were some seats there that came very close to going Conservative in the last election, did not, and their base is around the Quebec City area in that province. They've got 9 seats of the 78 at the moment, giving a little tour there. And apparently, unlike other leaders, he does not appear to have a Quebec-tailored message at the moment. So he's saying the exact same things in French as he is in English. And he seems to be talking a little bit more about some Energy East pipelines, which, Quebecers have thoroughly and wholly rejected and is just not going to happen. Legault is a fellow conservative-minded person. He's all on board on the green thing.
Oh yeah,
that's not happening. He doesn't have any avenues open there, and so far it seems that the Quebecers are seeing through Oliver like they saw through Harper. They never joined the Harper train ever. Right? They saw Ontarians fell for it for a while, and the West fell for it and never fell out of it. And even a couple places in Atlantic Canada bought the Harper stick for a while. But Quebecers like, nope. Right from the get-go, nope, sorry, not happening.
Nope.
And
not
they
happening.
might, so far at the moment, they seem to be behaving the same way with him over there. So that's a bit of a saving grace. He's doing really well in the interior of BC, however, which is what is bringing his numbers up federally, and the party's numbers up federally in particular. So we'll see what happens over the course of time there. But yeah, he's we're at that stage in the Liberal government where it is possible, right? Prime ministers don't typically win 4 elections in a row in Canada. I think there's pretty much only Laurier that's done it, I think.
And one of the things that my buddy of mine was suggesting, he says you get leader fatigue after this many years. So it's, he says I don't see him getting reelected, but again, there's not really a good alternative out there. So devil you know versus the devil you don't is but who knows? I mean, maybe Chrystia Freeland steps into position at that point in time. It's tough to say.
Well, see, here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? We're getting at that point where even if he is, see, my thing with the Liberals when they keep on asking, right? It's of all the parties that we have an option to choose of, they are the ones that seem to be offering a plan that's the most tethered to reality and a level of competence that is adequate.
Right.
I mean, like this, it's government. It's a big machine. It never really runs completely smoothly. So
did we lose you there? I think we lost you for a sec. You're breaking up pretty bad. It's like the $6 million man. She's breaking up. She's breaking up. I can't hold it.
So
major delay. We've got a really bad.
Am I still breaking?
Not so bad right now. It's just you've got a major delay.
Okay.
So you might be running a bunch of stuff in the background on your computer. We'll look at it for next time. We'll get through today.
I actually am not. The only thing I have is notes for the show in WordPad. That's the only thing.
You're running nothing else? Well, there may be
nothing.
Background things, though, that you're not aware of. Background services.
Oh, that's possible, yes.
Because I usually go in and shut a bunch down just to... although I'm running this on a gaming rig, which is pretty capable, and I've increased my network connection. I've got like a gig up and a gig down or something crazy like that. But I usually do go in and shut down services in the background. So if you don't know how to do that off the top, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out for some other day. That's another problem for another time. Let's just get through the day.
Okay, well, in that period, I forgot what I was saying.
Oh, I'm sorry. Squirrel. Squirrel.
I don't know where I was going with my point. Sorry. Remember?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, because you were breaking up really bad there. So
Oh.
it's like we couldn't even understand what you were saying at that point in time.
Oh,
It happens.
oh darn. I'm so sorry.
Technology's not perfect.
Yeah, I forgot where I was. But since we were talking about Freeland, one of the kits here, Kit South Stands TFC, says Freeland apparently has much greater aspirations. Yes, Trudeau being a leader too long. Thank you, Kit Sauce. If he stays, he definitely will be the better of the options. But if
Yes.
familiarity breeds contempt, we might have a Doug Ford situation, right, where we got to Kathleen Wynne, even though she had balanced the budget, and even though she was offering a good program, and even though she had shown she could be competent, his people were just like, before that election even the writ was dropped, we knew that she was losing. Right.
Oh, yeah.
The only question was
She did
majority or minority. Right. That had
Right.
already been decided. That was very clear. And if we get one of these situations, that's where Polliver may come in, and where Polliver may be dangerous. Well, will be very dangerous because it's not like the Conservatives have any bench depth either from which to go and pull.
None.
Right. Even if he has 3 years of runway, if they decide, you know what, okay, this guy's a liability, we still have 2 years. Let's flip him. For whom? There's really nobody obvious on that side. And on the Liberal side, while there are plenty of contenders, I mean, Anand would be great, Freeland would be great, François-Philippe Champagne would be great, Melanie Joly would be great. Mark Carney might come back into the race. I mean, there's no lack of quality candidates that could come in. Now, of course, they have to go through the gauntlet and be tested, but on paper, there's no lack of quality candidates there.
On paper.
Yeah, on
That's
paper. Right. I guess I don't know what's coming up on the Conservative side at all. There's no. I don't see any bright light. I don't see anything, unless sort of like David Frum decided he was going into politics and was deciding he was going to try to wrestle it back to some type of more much ish side. He's about the only person I can think of on that side with this who says things that I can sometimes agree with, because it's actually reasoned, and it doesn't have any leaks of logic, and it might not be my way of seeing the world, but it holds. Right. I can see how someone would see it that way. Right. So that's my fear. And when we're talking about stories at this point in someone's mandate, like C21 screwing up the gun bill, Mary Ng with Contract Demand Alvaro, the stuff going on with McKinsey, which may or may not have anything there. I have a feeling that they're the issue that they're really trying to connect is Dominic Barton, who was Canada's ambassador to China during the Meng Wanzhou thing, and then had close ties with the government in its first mandate. I think they're trying to draw a connection of coziness. That's the angle where they're going there. They're not saying it yet, but it seems to be that that's where they're going. And then there's something going on with Minister Hussein, some money thing, contracts or something of the sort. And this is the time at someone's mandate where these things can start to pile up and create an impression, because they still prefer, polling seems to indicate that while at the moment the Conservatives have a lead in the polls, the preferred prime minister metrics, it's still the prime minister.
Yes.
So Skippy's a drag on the party at the moment, but too much of those in a while can really tarnish the brand and can start to weigh. And sometimes you don't lose your government because you did one thing wrong. It just becomes it's 1,000 cuts after a while. Right. And that might be the case with him. If he decides to stay on for a fourth one, the chances of having a Prime Minister Freeland probably diminish. Because if he wins again, then the fifth mandate is probably highly improbable. And I say that she probably goes on to try to be Secretary General of the UN. Which is what she'll probably end up.
I think that's a pretty accurate guesstimate. She definitely has the chops, right?
Right.
And the diplomatic acumen. So yeah, there's a good chance of that. There's a very good chance of that.
That's probably what she would. I mean, what other higher? I mean, there's Governor General, but you need to be appointed to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an appointment. That's right.
I mean, where else?
I don't
do you
know.
Go higher?
Well, and the thing is, as Governor General, I can't see her wanting that position only because although technically it is the head of state in Canada, it's.
She likes to roll up her sleeves, and she likes the policy stuff.
There's a lot less that the Governor General can do from a policy standpoint, right?
It's more ceremonial.
It's more ceremonial. I mean, there are a lot of things involved with the government and the Governor General when it comes to, if you want to prorogue Parliament, or you have to go to the Governor General for permission to do these things, to dissolve Parliament, all that. But again, it's more of a ceremonial role in many, many ways. It's not the meat and potatoes of what needs to be done on a daily basis when it comes to legislation and making lives better for Canadians. So I can't necessarily see her doing that at this stage of her career.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe at some point after she's decided to step away from it, possibly. But I just can't see her doing it now because I don't think it's going to give her the job satisfaction because there's so much less she can do on a daily basis.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. We have Kit Linda M saying there's also risk of Singh dissolving the cooperation agreement because his huge ego might think people will choose him over Skippy and bring in an NDP government. I don't trust him. That risk, but I don't think that's going to happen just yet. The main reason I don't think that was going to happen just yet is because there are some provincial elections coming up in Alberta in May, and I believe in Manitoba in October. And those are two provincial elections that could very well go the NDP's way. And since
I think so.
Federal NDP
Alberta
policy,
especially.
Yes. And since federal NDP policy and provincial NDP policy, particularly on the prairies, don't seem to align, I have a feeling that Mr. Singh probably won't want to attract attention to himself in that way at that moment, because that could probably depress the provincial vote that's willing to come out if the federal party seems to be wanting to break up the national stability at the moment. That would inject some noise that would be very unwelcome by the provincial parties into the debate and into their elections at that time. So I think he's got a little barrier there. However, I have to say, because I'm pretty hard on Mr. Singh, over the last few weeks, he's been doing quite well. When he came out with his position that he could withhold his support if the Prime Minister didn't do anything on healthcare. That was an overplay of the hand, but I can understand why he needed to do that for the base.
Right.
Right, but I can understand why. But this time, unlike other times, he has backed it up by maintaining the debate. And he's found some pretty good angles and some comfortable positions to be. So on the healthcare, he is mentioning again of late that the federal government should be doing something, but there's been a slight nuance in his language where he's also adding the portion about making sure that the Canada Health Act is respected. Right. So before, when he was coming out, he was basically coming out in a manner that could let one suppose he was suggesting that the Prime Minister should be the head waiter to the provinces and just give them whatever they want money-wise. Like I said, forget about the strings attached and forget about the... so his language has modulated, if you will notice, over the past couple of weeks to include that portion. And then from the Premier's language has also modulated. The first person to come out of the gate was Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston. Now, admittedly, maybe his change of heart has been precipitated by recent events in Nova Scotia, including 2 high-profile cases of people dying, one in an ER room and then one hour within the hour of having left an ER room because she was not going to get service that day. And I think a pretty important spike in the number of ER room deaths in the province that year as well. I don't want to venture on the numbers. I have those numbers noted down at the Beaver Lodge itself, so I'm not going to risk taking a guess on them. But it's significant. It's eye popping. You'd be surprised. And he started coming up to the cameras and saying, if the federal government wants strings, then fine, we're fine with that. Just tell us what the strings are, and we'll be good. And then Doug Ford then came out a few days later, and then started mentioning that he'd be open to certain things. And then actually, Quebec Premier Legault was the one who first started it up, because the Prime Minister had a meeting with him, I think, just before Christmas or around Christmas, and he said that he saw some avenues and things were going well. And then, and I think a few days ago was even Premier Mo, also, right? It was against anything Trudeau says, and Trudeau gave him a little bit of a smack upside the head this week, if you didn't know.
Yeah, a little bit.
When he went to Saskatchewan to make that announcement about the critical minerals plant.
And, well, it was when he had his 5-minute what North
exactly
whatever True North
thing.
Called his tirade.
Yes,
it wasn't a tirade.
Yeah, and then but he didn't tell Saskatchewan Premier Mo that it was happening, and he didn't tell him that he was coming into the province. He just went to the event and made the announcement. Now, that's typically the type of announcement that the provincial government is at, because the federal and provincial governments did contribute money. They both did pitch into that. But the federal government just went and did the announcement. It's sorry, buddy, you don't get your candy. Learn to play nice. Just a little bit of elbows up there. It was I thought that was a nice touch.
Gordie Howe style.
Yeah, it was just a little smarten the F up. Because there's more of these announcements coming, and we can do this again. So, and then Premier Mo, I think it was pretty much the next day. It's I think that the federal government's priorities and ours are very much aligning. So, basically, the same strategy that worked. Imagine that. So, basically, the same strategy that worked for the CPP, that worked for the Canada Child Benefit, that worked for carbon tax, and what worked for childcare is working here too. We have a pot of money. We're putting it in the window. We have certain priorities, and then they all go, no, we'll take you to court and all that kind of stuff. And then something happens in one province, goes, we do, we'll take that money. And then somebody goes, yeah, me too, please. So now, again, this time, yes, I wish Trudeau would do more things like that. Trudeau has been getting spicier, and I love it.
Well, lately it's been this. Hang on, I'll show you.
Oh. What are we going to be shown? I do not know what he's showing us.
They're coming to him hat in hand, asking for money.
Yes. Well, and it's amazing how you can be less cocky on health when you have people drop ERs. Yeah, we'll make a deal. Because I want to get reelected. We're ready to make a deal. So, the cracks. And you know what? This was a game of chicken. But the Prime Minister is completely right here in wanting to have some types of results. Now, he's modulating his language as well too, right? So basically, it seems that there's a large framework for an agreement now, and there's going to be money going towards the provinces in a transfer, but it's not going to be $28 billion that they're requesting. And then there's going to be a series of one-on-one side deals with the provinces for money is going into their specific healthcare systems for specific problems relating to 5 specific areas like home care and long-term care and um, mental health and addictions, and
Mhm.
there's 5 general areas that money is going to go into, uh, and, and
We're losing you again. I don't know what happened there.
with
No, we're losing you
am I
badly.
doing okay now?
Yeah. No, you got almost no
Oh no.
signal. Your signal's 5 out of 10. I don't know what's going on. Your Wi-Fi seems a little wonky at that place. You're going to have to get a LAN cable, I think, and plug into your modem at some point direct. But your signal's good now,
Okay.
so we can keep rolling. We can keep rolling.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So yeah. I forgot where it was. Other provinces. Oh darn! I'm so sorry.
Sorry, it's just because it's a major distraction when you keep cutting out. We can't hear you, so we don't know where you are either.
Oh darn!
It happens. Yeah. Well, we'll just get you a long patch cable for next time. I mean, this is
Okay.
we're still building your road kit. You've got 3/4 of it. I need one more piece to complete it so that you can bring a mic with a stand, patch cable. You just need the digital interface, which I just can't afford right now. It's $100, so it's going to have to wait. I just can't afford an extra $100 right now. I mean, obviously, I couldn't pay my bar tab on Saturday, so
No,
I can't
you
spend
could.
another $100 right now.
Darn. So anyway, yeah, the overall framework with one-on-one deals with the provinces in 5 specific areas, and I was hoping I would be able to find them off the top of my head or in my notes here, but I can't. Um, but yeah, there we go. Medical backlogs, greater access to primary care, long-term care and home care, mental health and addictions, and health data. So those are the 5 areas that they're looking. So it seems going to make a decision to agree on with that which they agree, and leave what they don't agree on for another time in order to get some money flowing. And on the another thing that might be speeding up the premier's desire to actually reach an agreement is the fact that the budgeting cycles are coming up. Right, well, most everybody's budget needs
Mm-hmm.
to be tabled in April, and February, March is where you start getting
It's
really busy on
fast
that.
approaching.
Yeah. So they would like to settle that in order that they can make all their announcements of all the money they are putting into healthcare without giving any credit to Ottawa for any of it, as provinces love to do.
Yeah, of course.
And all the money they are investing in childcare, even though it pretty much all comes from the, you know, I,
Yeah.
where the money's coming from. You know where the money's coming from.
Oh, yes.
Oh man. So
It's
that's pretty
all
much what's
coming
going
from
on the
feds.
yeah. But it looks like the eternal dance is happening, and that the prime minister is getting pretty much what he wanted from day one. So he held out and
Mm-hmm.
played his cards. He played the long game, as we say on the show often. What we've recognized, he seems to have a very good ability to do that. Take a position that helps him win the long game, as opposed winning the current medium nanosecond moment, as has been the theme of the show, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and to whatever results that basically gets you, as conservatives have been noticing over the past 7 years or so. Nothing for people with disabilities. There is something for people with disabilities coming on. Minister Carla Qualthrow has been working for a while, called 22, if I'm not mistaken, which is to give a supplement to people with disabilities. I'm guessing it's a GIS similar type supplement
Mm-hmm.
for people with disabilities. Don't quote me on that. We've been calling the minister's office trying to get her to come on the show, but unfortunately we've reached a roadblock. So hopefully we'll find when we have the person that we found that's a federal MP who's agreed to come on the show. Maybe they'll be able to tell us a little bit more about the bill, because we'll definitely ask them.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, so we'll hopefully get that for you. And yes, universal basic income would be really nice. And I
It
am
would be the
wondering
ticket, I think.
yeah, I am wondering what did happen to all that talk about learning the lessons of the pandemic and bringing in policy for it, because that was going to be the theme of the election when they were going to have it in September of the year previous, when we were coming back from that summer. And you know,
I don't know what happened.
the governor, they replaced Judy Payette and put in Mary Simon, so everything was a place for them to go, and they decided not to go in the end. And maybe that would have been a plank in that platform. But yeah, and now the focus does definitely seem to be on wanting to get back to some type of what can be called economic discipline, because they know that that's the message on which Skippy is going to hammer them on 3 years from now. So they would like to have much better numbers to run on to take that argument out from under him, to make basically everything he said a lot waste of time and have to find a new platform. So that's my if I'm looking long term, that would be the strategy. So
Well, I was
which
thinking that
means
with
that
a
universal
UBI,
UBI might be on the shelf again.
well, if we had a UBI, we could get rid of, not get rid of, but we could merge CPP, OAS, GIS, and welfare systems all
Yes.
into one lump sum. That's
Yes.
it. Everybody gets the same. It's simple. It's easy. Less administrative work. Less headaches for the for want of a better term, end user, the recipient, because it's just one thing you have to deal with instead of multiple things. And the idea behind it is brilliant, because people are, well, you'll always have the detractors go, well, people just won't want to work. They'll just sit back and collect the money. No. You're going to have a percentage like that. Even my hardcore progressive conservative friends said, oh, yeah, there's always a percentage of the population that there's a certain percentage that are unemployable. Like they cannot work, right? For whatever reason. And then there's a percentage that refuse to work. That's always going to exist. It always has. It's never going to go away.
Right.
So should we punish everybody for the very, very few who refuse to work? And that's very few. Very few. So there, like, again, there's a certain percentage of the population that cannot work. Period. Cannot work. And with long COVID, we're going to see a larger population that cannot work because they just can't get through a day. But a UBI would eliminate so many headaches, and as the saying goes, a rising tide lifts all boats. And what happened with all that CERB money? It just went right back into the economy, because you need to eat, you need to pay your hydro bill, you need to have your internet because you can't live without it today, and you need to, keep a roof over your head. A UBI would be such a tremendous aid to so many people. There's people who work terrible jobs, sometimes 2 or 3 terrible jobs, because they have no other choice, because social services or welfare in the province of Ontario for a single person is $750 a month. I think it's $743, which doesn't pay for anything. ODSP is a little bit more than that, but it's still not enough to survive on. A UBI would take care of all of that. You get rid of all of them. ODSP, well, not get rid of them, but merge it all into one thing. One UBI, that's it. No more ODSP, no more welfare, no more CPP, no more OAS, no more GIS. All of it falls under the same umbrella, less administrative cost, and much simpler for the recipient in the end. All we need to do is get enough people interested in doing this. And who's the guy who launched this? Who was the guy who came up with this idea? Former progressive conservative senator Hugh Segal.
Hugh Segal. Yep.
Bootstraps need boots. He wrote a book about it.
Yep. I also think he's
a progressive.
Yeah, I think he's the head of Fair Income Canada now.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
We should ask him on the show too. Yeah.
Yeah, please. God, I'd love to have him on the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
And look at what Mike says, an extra $2K a month. You could do so much with it. it would really improve the economy and the country and the lives of millions of people. And it's been proven that it works. And it costs us less money as a society to house people and give them spending money to get back on their feet than it does to keep people homeless.
Yep.
Finland's proved it.
Homeless and sick and going through the healthcare system and through the judiciary system and the penal system.
All of it, right?
And all of it.
They've proven that it improves society.
Yep.
Much like the daycare system in the province of Quebec, which has proven it puts more back into the system than it ever took out.
Yep.
Proven.
Yep. Absolutely.
So
they're programs that pay for
let's
themselves.
make this happen. They do.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to pay extra taxes. Well, then
but
move somewhere else.
And here's the thing, right? Because I'm so good, I can play devil's advocate. Because if I was on the conservative side of the spectrum and somebody was proposing this, my first policy right away is like, in these times, giving people free money that will pump inflation like this and keep this crisis going. Are you crazy? So either way, you're handing them a plank. Right. And the second one, you can actually make a case for in theory.
Well,
when
trying to sell UBI in Canada, it's much like when Bernie was trying to sell single-payer health care in the U.S.
Yep.
He would come to them and say, yes, your taxes are going to go up. You're going to pay $5,000 more per year in taxes. But right now you're paying $10,000 a year in insurance payments.
Right.
So I'm actually saving you $5,000. But my taxes are going to go up. But I'm saving you $5,000.
Yeah.
And because it's single payer, guess what? Nothing gets refused. There's no deductible. Nothing gets refused. Your taxes go up by $5,000, but you save $10,000 in insurance premiums. So you're actually getting $5,000 in your pocket. But my taxes are going to go up. Okay, you know what? This is stupid. I'm beating my head against a wall here. You're not listening to what I'm saying, which is the same selling point for UBI in Canada. They will continue to beat that same dead horse. But the taxes will go up. But I'm saving you money. I'm going to save you money. And just now,
Gets Ozzy here says people cannot do math when it comes to taxes. They act like the entire thing comes out of only their bank account. Every $37 million is $1 a piece, so that's how I divide things that are paid by taxes.
Yes, yeah.
And there you have it, kids.
Let's go. Here, let me pull this up. So I've got two things here. Throw it real quick. So remember, back on January 6th, I said, look at Canada's population, 39,394,059. You want to know what it is as of this very moment in time? So keep that number, 39,39,4059.
You might have to take the top things up.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
And right now, it's 39,418,000. So we've jumped by what, 24,000 people in 16 days.
You are fascinated with that. I love it. It's so cute.
Well, I am because you look at the population growth, and as oops, sorry, I want to take that down. As Ree just said, $1 by 37 million. Well, it's actually almost 40 million now.
Right.
So
that's true.
If every person contributes $1, that's almost $40 million.
Yeah, and 1 for 40 makes it
much easier.
Doing your head.
This is what I'm getting at, right? So, yeah, I am fascinated by how quickly we're growing.
Yeah. I still wonder where we're going to house everyone.
Well, you know what?
The policies are not aligned.
No, I agreed. A buddy of mine who is a progressive conservative said to me, and he does not like the prime minister at all, just because he's a progressive conservative. But he did say, we need to do something about the homeless. He says, if we have to start building, large apartment buildings to give them an apartment, a place to live, he says, we need to do this because the homeless problem, or the houseless problem, however you want to call it or label it, is becoming an epidemic in this country. And we can't continue to do this because it costs us more money. You think about it, policing costs, healthcare costs, judiciary costs, all of that gets built into somebody who gets constantly arrested just for being without a house. Look what they did in Toronto just a couple of weeks ago, where they people were had tents set up, and the city went and tore them down.
Yep.
Because John Tory doesn't want to see that. Well, give them a place to live then. If somebody is living in a tent in January in Canada, in Toronto, Canada's biggest city, you think they're doing that because they want to? You really think somebody wants to live in a tent in downtown Toronto in January? No. It's because they can't afford to keep a roof over their head. Because the minimum wage is not a livable wage. And because housing costs are outrageous right now. My buddy's getting set to retire in a year and a half. And most of his family lives in Toronto. And he just lives a few blocks away from me. And he was going to move to Toronto and rent an apartment. And his sister-in-law said, don't. He goes, why not? She said, rents here are averaging at $2,600 a month. And he went, what? And I tried telling him this a while ago, but I think he just needed to hear it from somebody who, on the ground in the location. And he's like, oh my God. He goes, I can afford that, but then I wouldn't have any sort of life whatsoever. It would be barely existence at that point. I said, yeah, just stay here. She goes, dude, stay in Ottawa. Your rent is less than half that. You can afford where you're living. You can hop on a train anytime you want to come down here.
Yep. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You got hit Mike here saying I'd pay an extra $50 a month in federal tax to make sure everyone could eat and be housed. I'm there.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
it's
right
like when I said a bunch of years ago, there was a calculation done that if everybody paid an additional $100, this is about 10 years ago, so I don't know what the numbers are today. But if every taxpayer in the province of Ontario paid $100 more per year, we could fund post-secondary education.
Yeah.
Fund it completely.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'll make the check out for $200 right now. Who do I write it to?
Yeah. And Mike H is not, what he's saying there is not wrong. I was listening to a podcast, The Bridge with Peter Mansbridge, and he has this segment called The Random Renter. It's this guy that keeps on that's not identified, not rants, and the other day did a rant that I actually need to pay more taxes because I'm tired of seeing this country like this. And if we need to pay a little more, then fine, come and get it. Like this, I'm able to charge me more taxes. And he thought Peter Mansbridge thought that the reaction to that on the show, right, from the listeners would be hell no. And it was like 70-30, yes, more taxes or something. It was just the feedback that he got. So it's like, we see it, right? Again, as we keep on saying on the show, right? Radically reasonable is sweet spot in the Canadian political landscape, and we're neighborly. Because we don't like to see our neighbors suffer like this, and if it means it's going to cost me a little more, as long as you do what you say you're going to do with it, then I don't mind shelling it out. And that's the problem, is that the people actually doing what they say they're going to do with the money. Mm-hmm. Right? And
if it costs me an extra $50 a month to end homelessness, I'll give you $100 a month. I can afford that. So I go to the pub one less. I only go one day a week now, and twice a month when we do. You know what I'm getting at, though. I'd be happy to pay the extra money if it will give somebody. Here's the thing. What was it my buddy says? I don't want to give a handout. I want to give a hand up. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, I agree with that. Let's give them a hand up. Because that's what, and again, accept the fact there's always going to be people that will abuse the system, period. So, knowing that fact, don't punish everybody with the same brush because a few people cheat. There's always going to be cheaters. Accept it. Until we live in a society where money is not a thing, and that will happen at some point in time, but I'm not going to be around to see it, when all the jobs are replaced by robots and AI, and that is going to happen at some point in time. The only jobs that will be available will be stuff like what we're doing, entertaining people, sort of all manufacturing, labor, construction, dangerous jobs. That's all going to disappear in the next 50 years. It's all going to disappear. My buddy who is a computer programmer said that within 5 years his job won't exist because he writes code that creates AI that writes code. And the AI, what the AI can do is it can find mistakes in the lines of code that we can't, because you're writing, some like, what is it? The F-35 requires 25 million lines of code.
Yep.
The aircraft.
Yep.
So if a computer's writing it, the computer will find the mistakes. We can't. We'll find the mistakes after we put it in the air and realize, oops, there's the problem. But you got to sort through 25 million lines of code to find it. Well, a computer can do that in a second.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm getting a little bit out there, but someday money will not be a thing.
Yep.
Someday we will live in a Star Trek-like environment. One would hope.
Mm-hmm.
One would hope, because it could end up to be Elysium, but that's another story altogether, right?
Yes. Speaking on similar topics about taking care of people, 10 days of paid sick leave is now mandatory in federally regulated industries. Some private companies have decided to start offering it anyways as well, also to attract workers, because, it's a competitive world out there. And if you want the best people, you've got to be offering the best advantages. And an employer that has been offering it made a point in an interview that I thought was kind of interesting. She said that she believed in the sick leave benefits. She had no problem with that. But she was wondering, like, doesn't the government already have this money? They're collecting employment insurance from employers and employees on every payroll.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you would think that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we have an EI thing, and why wouldn't? And we've always had large surpluses in the EI funds.
Mm-hmm.
But because the EI funds go into general revenue, they're often taken to go and pay down debt. Right? Now, if that EI fund was a dedicated EI fund, for example, when it came time to help everybody during the pandemic, we probably would not have had to borrow money because that fund would have been there. Now, our financial situation going into the pandemic would be different because we didn't pay down the debt that we paid down in the other times that, where we ended up having those great consecutive number of years in a row under Christie and Martin, where we worked ourselves up to a $13 billion annual surplus that Harper gave away in one stroke of the pen with a GST cut of 2 cents on the dollar that nobody notices really.
Well, and let's take another look.
It's literally giving you back your 2 cents at a time.
But let's take another look at EI being used for sick leave, which I think is a great idea.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. That's where I'm going.
Well, here's what I'm getting at. Here's what I wanted to say, though, is that I think that's a great idea. It's a wonderful idea. Just don't make it a non-superfluous transition. So if I have to take a week off because I'm sick, don't make me fill out extra paperwork so I can get paid and I won't see it for 60 days or something like that. Just keep my income the same and just have the accountant within the company forward in my 1 week's sick leave to EI and take care of it in the background. Because when you're sick, you're already stressed about money.
Yeah.
Now I got to work. I got to do paperwork to try and get paid for my sick time. No, make it superfluous. If I'm sick, I just get paid my regular 2 weeks or whatever the case may be, right?
Yep.
And if they can implement it in that manner, I'm 100% on board and in support of it.
Yeah.
But if they're going to implement it and I got to start filling out paperwork.
No, it needs to be seamless if you're going to do that. It needs to be the corporation that's like send, at the end of the month, send all their sick leave for the months to the government and then they reimburse them back or something. But for the employer, it has to be seamless. But with all that surplus in that time, compounded interest and all that kind of invested in an account like this, there would have been money for the pandemic. There'd be money for a sick leave program like that, and would be money in a fund for retraining. That just transition thing that everybody's like complaining about, like this, but basically the, helping, move our workforce to where move our workforce to where the puck is going when it comes to green energy, particularly out west. Right, that transition, because that's where we're going. Like there would be money in the fund for that if we didn't look at it as an opportunity, as some money just sitting around there whenever we needed to balance the budget for political reasons or legitimate economic reasons. But that's it's just again, it's one of those things. What have things been like had we never raided the I fund?
Mm-hmm.
We can't
That's a
know.
good
It's
question.
like Schrodinger's box, right?
Schrodinger's cat.
Schrodinger's cat. Schrodinger's box.
Well,
If you want us to slide
I mean,
right into your
you can
Schrodinger's box, our podcast
you
subscription
can
is.
you can draw a parallel between cat and box if you really wanted to, but I'm not going to go there.
Oh man,
I'm not going to go
the
there.
cat in the box says that. Anyway,
Not where I was going. Not where I was going. And
oh, man.
remember, for fashion sense, go to Eleganza. Eleganza, where you can look like a cast member of Space 1999.
Oh my god, it's an eleganza extravaganza, darlings. You work those platforms, honey.
I had
You have
platform
anything?
boots in the 70s.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah, of course I did. Hey, man, Kiss wore them. It was cool. I had a brown pair
well,
of platform boots in the 70s.
yes.
I was always a bit of a fashionista. I mean, my God, look at this. If that's not fashion, I don't know what is.
Hey, baby. Hey, baby, bring some of that sugar this way. Whoa. Oh, man.
I mean, come on. This is a fashionista right here. Look at this guy, eh? How's that for a fashionista?
Yeah, there we go. You knew where your light was. You knew where your light was.
Oh, yeah.
Exposing your best side.
It's all I've got. It's all I've got. Come on, I didn't go to university. I went to college on a province of Ontario sponsored program, so I could learn how to do what I was already doing for years anyway, and get a piece of paper to say I knew how to do it, which they never actually sent to me, even though I finished the program. But I couldn't afford to go to university because, well, that costs money, and, you know, I was a working class stiff, so I never had that chance to get that hand up. OSAP I didn't qualify for. So, you know. And then, of course, they went from OSAP, which was a provincially government-sponsored program, to, well, we're just going to hand it over to the banks so that they can deal with it. Oh, yeah, that seemed like a good idea. So you've got a government program for student loans with a very low interest rate that would not break your back when you have to pay them back, versus a for-profit industry is now going to loan you money. How do you think that works out?
Usually not in favor of the person borrowing the money.
Never does.
Never does. Never does. Do we have time for a little bit of news about the Canadians who have done us proud?
Sure. I got 5 minutes before I have to go to a meeting.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Well, then.
Well, we've been on for 2 hours now almost.
Yes.
So.
That's usually the time it takes me to sign off. Okay. So rather than Canadians that have done us proud, then just a little Aussie Open update because, you know, on the tennis freak in me.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, all the Canadians are out of the tournament except for Gabriela Dabrowski in women's doubles. Ta-da! Aussie update. No. Combination of surprises and terrible draws and stuff like that. We had 2 Canadian players in the females in the women's draw face the number 4 in the world. So who's like on a tear at the moment. So that kind of decimated the field. Karen Garcia to herself basically decimated the women's field. And then in the men, Denis Shapovalov lost a very, 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 very tough match to a higher ranked player from Poland, Hurkacz, but played very well. And then Felix Auger-Aliassime got furthest, and there's a Czech guy named Jiří Herička who's just come out of nowhere and is having a Cinderella run and took him out. So that was it. Gabriela Dabrowski had a really good path towards the title in the mixed doubles, as a lot of top seed teams got eliminated very quickly, but so did she in the second round. The only Canadian left is Gabriela Dabrowski in women's doubles, entering the third round. And I think even all of our juniors might already be out as well. So
Oh, really?
bit of a difficult, challenging run. There might be one junior girl in last name Zhu XU, but in doubles. But other than that, it's uh, not because Canadians played poorly, but just tough draws or running up against people that are just playing like the best they've ever played in their entire lives at this exact moment. So there you go. But yeah, I'm a little sad. And and also, but like Nadal is out for the men, who's like number one because he came in with an
Yeah.
injury, and Iga Swiatek, the number one on the women, is also out. Played against someone who's having a good run at the moment. So it's it's a topsy turvy event. Lots of good tennis, however. I just don't know who to cheer for at the moment.
Couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you.
It's like all my favorites are gone. So
Well,
yeah,
uh,
I'm going to be discovering other tennis players, I guess, as I watch a few matches and see what happens in the next as we get closer to the final. All right, kids, I think we have a show, don't we, Mr. Grizzly?
yeah, we do. We do.
Yeah, we
'Cause I
do.
gotta go.
All right. Okay, okay, kids. We hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Eager Beaver Morning Show, because we loved making it for you. If you would like to subscribe to us, you can find us on our pod page. That's podpage.com/True North Eager Beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. If you'd like to communicate with us, you can do so via our email, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, through our Twitter feed @TrueEager, or on our blog page at Facebook, True North Eager Beaver. If you're listening to us on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're not, please find our YouTube channel and please subscribe. That would help us a lot. If you listen to us on Apple or Google or anything else that allows you to give us a rating, please do. Give us some stars. Send us a review. Let us know what you think. We'd really appreciate that. Of course, we have merch for you.
Subscribe is right there. Right there. Hit the subscribe button.
Okay.
Please.
There you go. If you want some merch, we have some merch for you. We have to change that Chiron because it's no longer that anymore. It's
Oh, that's right. It's changed, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Let me just,
so right now we're
pull
doing
that
some
out.
false
I'm gonna have to go and check.
advertising there, people. But crier.co, and then you click on the shop icon and you can find us there. If you would like to leave us a tip, our tip jar is at coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver. And thank you, Kathy. We mentioned it on our PubCast show yesterday, but we want to mention on our regular morning show for the wonderful tip that you sent us. We very much appreciate it. Very, 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 very much. And I don't think I have anything else off the top of my head. So, Mr. Grizzly, before we go, do you have some words of wisdom for us?
Well, ouch! I dropped my keyboard. Sorry about that.
Don't do that, kids.
Don't do that. That's bad for you. Here, I got the thing. Oh, that's a nice store too. I like the look of that. Let me just put this in the captions here. I'll change this. Dean, this is still legit, by the way. This is still operational for the time being.
Okay.
But there is a new one coming, and I will put that in here right now. And then I'll give you my words of wisdom while I just... whoops, I got to hit the right... I got two keyboards and two computers in front of me, so sometimes I get a little bit confused because I'm old. There we go. There's the new media shop. I think there might be a shorter one for it. I'll see if I can find that later. But for the time being, you can access... if you want a T-shirt, you can go there. I'm going to try and get submitted the additional things to the T-shirts. The Democracy is Something You Do on the backs, along with coffee mugs and toques and maybe a ball cap. But I'm more of a toque guy myself, Anyway, words of wisdom? Yeah. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to your friends. Show gratitude whenever you can. Remember to drink water. That's very important.
Hydrate.
And at 9 p.m. this evening, I will do an ASMR show for those of you who need it. 9 p.m.
Yes. So, yes, do listen to your Mr. Grizzly. Hydrate. And then after you've hydrated, listen to Mr. Beaver, then gyrate. Woo-hoo! Always take time to dance, babies! All right, Mr. Grizzly, please roll the credits.
The True North Eager Beaver podcast is an Eager Beaver Mr. Grizzly collaboration. Research, story, and guest curation, and copywritten by the Eager Beaver. Recording, production, editing, and additional research by Mr. Grizzly. Music courtesy of Ben Sound Royalty Free Music. Once again, thank you to our founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing and CanadianTarot.com. And thank you to Pete Jarvis for our artwork. We love it. Kits, we'll talk to you real soon. Bye.
Take care. See ya.
See?
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community and forum, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from fresh farm ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.